Hi, my name is Juliet Martin. I'm a senior double major in psychology and women's and gender studies, and welcome to my Senior Capstone podcast episode. Yay! For my capstone, I'm going to be talking about how I focused on transformative educational activism in a high school setting. And with further ado, that brings me to how we're just going to take it all the way back to 2017, where I started my time as a freshman at Waccamaw High School, located in Pawleys Island, South Carolina. They are named after the Waccamaw tribe, which is actually native to South Carolina's coast. And during my 4 years, I walked hallways that were adorned with Native American art, and yet all of my social studies courses, we learned nothing about the Waccamaw tribe. Our mascot was called the Warriors, yet we weren't learning about Native American history. So there was like this huge gap in, as a student at least, with the name and who the people were behind the name. So it wasn't until my senior year here at Coastal actually that I had an opportunity with in Jamie McCauley's sectional environmental justice class, where we got to volunteer at different locations essentially, and one of them was the Waccamaw annual powwow in November. This was the chance that I had to be able to learn about the people who belonged to my alma mater. And so at the powwow, I volunteered for 2 days, and I was able to meet tribesmen, dancers wearing traditional regalia, and talk to families from all around the country who were coming down from different tribes or from the Waccamaw tribe. There were people who were native there were non-natives there. The camaraderie was just the same, and the passion for these traditional dances and practices, they were all there. And I remember being there just wondering, why didn't I get this in high school? And this experience is just so important for people to have the opportunity to educate ourselves and be able to fully immerse ourselves within other cultures and with indigenous cultures specifically. Why haven't I as a Waccamaw alumnus heard of them before? Is there even a way to get this kind of energy to a high school? Who are the right people to even do that? And where does one even begin with that? And those questions actually became the description of my problem. I decided that with my connection with Waccamaw High School faculty and with Coastal Carolina educators, and then with the previous volunteer experience with the tribe, why can't I be the person that brings that education to a high school? But then that met with another problem of, how do I make it available to students and faculty of all backgrounds, or even better, the whole Georgetown County? And how do I make an impactful lesson off of it? But why is an impactful lesson off of it, other than the fact that Waccamaw High School is named after the Waccamaw tribe, so there's a name similarity thing there? Why else is it even important for me to bring this education to the high school? I found out the answer to this after talking to my mentor, Dr. Dillian, who is a doctorate in archaeology here at Coastal Carolina University. It was through her that I found out that the tribe's current mission is to gain federal recognition. And granting federal recognition gets them federal funding benefits, services, and protections from the country. They were only state recognized in 2004, so they have state protections. One of the protections, one of the federal protections, includes the ancestor remains right, which under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation, I'm looking over, it's because I can't say the word repatriation. But this act was only enacted in 1990. It's also called NAGPRA. Since the Waccamaw tribe is not federally recognized, they don't have access to this right, meaning that any remains that are found that belong to the Waccamaw tribe, they don't get to keep. Spiritually, federal recognition means something even more too. It's being honored as known citizens of their own country. To be federally recognized is a whole other sense of pride for the people of Waccamaw. So members like Chief Hatcher and Dr. Dillian have actually devoted their entire careers to this in order to spread awareness, because the most important step in getting recognition is having their community recognize who they are and support them. And they do this through tribal grounds events like the annual powwow. They do this through school field trips and researching artifacts from across the world. This way students can learn the history of their school's namesake, but they can also gain appreciation for the tribe's activism efforts. So I've located the problem. being a lack of Indigenous education that provides like a positive outcome. But another issue that I was running into is like, how do I deliver a universal lesson to Waccamaw people that is available during school hours, all grades, and can fit into a 1-block class time? Which feeds into my literature review, which I'm going to split up into 3 small sections just for the sake of time. Native stories, positive usage of interactive models, and then how they get back to multiple communities. A researcher by the last name Brayboy suggests that listening to Native stories actually triggers our active listening skills. Hearing Native speakers actually give real accounts of their identity is going to be a lot more impactful to an audience rather than just reading about them. I knew that I wanted Native stories, specifically autobiographical snippets or sound bites, right? Second, for interactive models, there's actually a pair of high school and higher education teachers who created an entire textbook off of how to teach about Indigenous cultures and why it's so important. And they actually created an art installation piece in the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in the Student Union Gallery. So this was called the Coyote's first World Casino art installation piece. And the way that it was set up was that the inside, it was like a room inside of the panels, talked about Native traditions and the importance of their culture, and gave a list of different tribes and different autobiographical stories. And then on the outside of the panels, it talked about why it's so important to right the wrongs of Native history. When we're coming from trying to assimilate Native Americans into America, take them through how are we going to right this wrong and why is it important to be recognizing them for who they are. And I loved the duality of this method, because they even said like during their research that there were so many positive comments from the audience, and it was that those comments confirmed the potential for the installation piece to serve as teaching and learning tool. So not only were participants like abstractly learning about these issues, but they experienced the trauma and the well-being like themselves, because they were hearing these like autobiographical moments. And then as the last one is giving back to communities. And a researcher in Europe who actually also talks about Brayboy's research that I mentioned in the first section. She talks about how it's really important for Native scholars specifically to be highlighted when it comes to Indigenous education. It's because of these actions help with their communities to preserve and continue their heritage. So for example, Dr. Dillian, being a doctor in archaeology and donating her career and creating interactive exhibits and permanent exhibits in museums and running annual powwow events, not only is it helping non-natives get educated in Indigenous culture, but it's giving back to her own community and her tribe as a Native in creating advocacy and creating recognition. Mentor were brainstorming a couple of ideas when it came to how are we going to bring interactive education to high schoolers. We talked about speaker events and class visitations, but we kept on butting into the problem of discretionary funds and how much would even be offered, if offered anything. And then underneath her desk, she pulls out 10 large cases that have 10 panels that mimic the permanent exhibit in the Horry County History Museum about the Waccamaw people. Specifically, the past, present, and future interactive exhibit that she set up that's also fully online. And she told me how it's free for rent to any kind of establishment for a month, and they've already had it at Coastal's campus. They had it at the museum before they had the permanent exhibit up there a few years ago, but it had never been in Georgetown County. So it became the defining answer to the problem, to multiple of the problems. Getting this education in a high school that needs it and allowing it to be accessible during classroom time to all students of all backgrounds and to all faculty. It's a multimedia aspect, which ties in the interactive panel aspect I was talking about in literature review. Lastly, it gives back to a community of a Native scholar that worked on it, like Dr. Dillian and Chief Hatcher and all of the other tribes people who contributed into this project. It's actually really cool because it pulls directly from the permanent exhibit in the Horry County History Museum. You know, I actually wish I printed out some pictures of it, or like I could show some or anything like that. Or if I could just like go there, maybe that would be really cool. If I could just take you guys along with me. Oh wait, I can. Welcome to the Horry County History Museum, located in downtown Conway, just 9 minutes away from Coastal's campus. Let's go take a look at what the pop-up exhibit is based off of. And here we are in the Waccamaw Indian Peoples Past, Present, and Future exhibit. This is the permanent installment in the Horry County History Museum located in downtown Conway, which is free for all Coastal students to attend from 9 to 5 on weekdays. The exhibit is meant to guide the audience through a brief history, tribes members' interviews, real artifacts, and then the importance of federal recognition, which is the tribe's current mission. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the 10-panel pop-up exhibit is based off of. Interviews are heard through these speaker boxes, and at the interactive pop-up exhibit, they're displayed through QR codes instead, which takes you directly to the Waccamaw Past, Present, and Future website so you can listen to the interview in full.
That's where they actually simulate the hunt. And so the moves represent moves that a hunter would have made or that an animal would have made during a hunting process. And so that aspect of it, it's just brought more of the Native American culture and heritage that has been my past that I never knew about.
That was pretty cool, right? I walked off and we were there and then walked through it. That was pretty neat, right? And now I'm back. I really had the hope of also giving this like future opportunities for the Waccamaw High School and the tribe to collaborate again for maybe school field trips or for more like educational opportunities like guest speakers. Maybe a field trip to the Horry County Museum would be really cool, where they can kind of dip more into discretionary funds and they can really immerse students into Waccamaw history. So that was my intended goal, was to make this more long-term and let this just be like the start of contact between the tribe and the school. But this interactive exhibit makes me more than excited about the goals of this capstone. So with the gracious approval of Dr. Dillian, I was able to go to Waccamaw High School and actually meet with the principal, Dr. Eddie, to talk about getting the exhibit in the school for some time. The principal was really excited about it. He, come to find out, actually has a background in history for his education, and he has been thinking about getting something like this or collaborating in some way to get Waccamaw history in the hands of students. He just couldn't figure out a way to do it. He immediately approved of it. And on March 27th, Dr. Dillian and I met at the high school to be able to set up the full exhibit in the media center, which was awesome because we knew that it was going to be up for a little bit over a month and that the principal was going to contact all social studies teachers to push them into having their classes visit the exhibit during class time. After we set up the exhibit in the media center, we met with Dr. Eddie and Dr. Gear, and he actually had the idea of inviting not just social studies, but classes of all subjects. This really opened up my goal even further. I was initially just looking for history classes to be able to walk through, and classes actually began going through the exhibit on April 2nd, and they have been going through it since then, so it's been almost a month now. He has had over 10 classes visit the exhibit, and they have actually ranged from business, art, American literature, and social studies. He then, on April 3rd, gave me an example of of lesson plans and classwork, like a worksheet that was actually he designed with collaboration of the other teachers for students to be able to answer as they're walking through. He said that he's gotten a lot of positive feedback as well, and there have been more teachers who have been emailing with interest. 10 classes already visiting with 20 to 25 students in them, 200 plus students that have walked through the exhibit, when I initially thought maybe about 100 would be able to visit through. So my goals had already doubled. Creating a lasting change. It's lasting change. It's transforming the way that students will see the name Waccamaw forever now. Like, it hits a special place in me to know that students of all backgrounds are looking at this and they're learning that somebody who came from their school brought this here, and it's possible. And it's possible with college, and it's possible with higher education. And even then, it's possible just to be, like, just by being interested in these subjects and the importance of other communities. And it really shows that, like, diverse conversation and inclusive education is so impactful for young students when it comes to how they are going to navigate the world. Really looking forward to how more students interact with the exhibit, especially my kids, just like my brother, actually, who are big history nerds, and that was their favorite subject. Actually, I talked about it with my brother, who is also an alumnus of Waccamaw High School, and just how important this education is.
My name's Benjamin James Martin. I'm in HCTC for mechanics. I'm going to become a master tech. My favorite was social studies. I liked U.S. history a lot, so I feel like it should be taught. I mean, it's the origin of our high school. That's where the name originated. You know, that's where we're located. You know what I mean?
And
so I feel like it's important. You know, I mean, we did briefly like touch on that subject with like the people of like the Cherokee tribe and stuff. But I mean, we just kind of like, I don't want to say glossed over it, but we didn't go into like as depth as I wish we would have.
Do you think that you would have been interested in learning about the Waccamaw tribe in a social studies setting?
I think so. You know, I think so. I think they should incorporate that into their learning paths, you know, because they didn't really teach me anything about the Waccamaw people, at least that I can remember.
I actually will visit the high school one more time after this is all done, the first week of May, to pick up the panels and actually get a really good account of the positive feedback. I've just been told that there have been a lot of social studies teachers who are interested in it, and that a lot of teachers had like immediate feedback on bringing their classes over. But after graduation, I'm hopeful that this isn't like the only collaboration with Waccamaw and the tribe. I'm hoping that something like this will continue, and even this information will spark a high school student to study Indigenous culture, or to study archaeology, or to study just American history in general, and the importance of multicultural voices. After I set up the exhibit at the end of March, I posted on my social media. I had a lot of positive feedback from people I graduated with the same year as me, people who graduated after me, students who are still there, teachers who are teaching there, just over the moon that this was even happening. Thinking back to not even just January me, but November me, when I first volunteered at the annual powwow, I never thought how important immersive multimedia education in activism really is, because it's just setting up students for this inclusive success in the classroom, but then it's also creating like lasting connections between communities. That's the end of this podcast episode. I could really talk about this subject and this project for hours. It's just, I find it so interesting, and I think that it was just such a invaluable opportunity that I got to have, but there are some thanks in order. So a special thank you to the Waccamaw tribe, my mentor, Dr. Carolyn Dillian, and then her co-collaborator, Dr. Katie Stringer-Clary. Without your guys' efforts and activism, I would not be doing this at all. Without your guys' contribution to making the interactive pop-up exhibit, making the permanent exhibit in Horry County, you guys are doing really awesome work. Way more people deserve to know about it, because I just find it so inspirational. Waccamaw High School's principal, Dr. Eddie, and the media center coordinator, and inviting an alumni back in to do something like this, because I know that it's making an awesome impact on students. Special thank you to my professor, Dr. Ina C. Taylor, who's watching this right now. I wouldn't be doing any of this at all, really, if you think about it, if it wasn't for you. So you got me into this major to make actual change. Thank you so much again for watching, and go visit the permanent exhibit in the Horry County Museum, please. It is so awesome. Bye.